Hey everybody, this is Carl back again for another Blade review. This time will be the final Blade Marvel anime that I'll be reviewing. Marvel anime Blade. If you've seen my previous installments of reviewing the other anime uh, arcs, which have been phenomenal in each of their own right. First one I did was Marvel Anime Iron Man, which I did last year while I was going through all different Iron Man types of reviews from the movies, the comics, and TV shows, which you can check out on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkativecarl, and on my views on a lot of Iron Man stuff. Not that it's going to be the only Iron Man related content I'll cover for the channel, but I did a good, key things that, thought it'd be cool to talk about. Then I did Marvel Anime Wolverine and X-Men for all the X-Men related content I did, for the bulk of the summer. As this will be the final Marvel anime, which is Blade, which I wanted to cover for Halloween theme review month. I got one more. I covered one Blade comic, first two Blade films. Then after this video, I'll cover Blade Trinity, and that'll be like, well, outside of comics, this will be like the final Blade related thing that I'll be covering. It did make a Blade TV show on Spike TV. I watched it. It was only that one season. From what I remember, it was decent. It wasn't terrible, but it didn't let me. It didn't get me all hype or anything like that. We had a different actor that looked more like this anime variant of Blade than he did Wesley Snipes, but I don't know, it was alright. But yeah, so this anime is pretty much, like all the previous ones, since it's anime, all set pretty much in, well, the other three are in Japan. This one, Japan adjacent, where Blade goes on this kind of adventure through the East, where he not only goes to Japan, but it goes to the Philippines and Laos in order to track down Deacon Frost. And this Deacon Frost variant of Deacon Frost is not too dissimilar to what we know of him, but in here he's got 4 fangs and he got his vampirism through scientific means. And there was an episode, it was like at least the 3rd or 4th last episode before the season wrap up, where you see this Deacon Frost's background. Now, I don't know if in the comics this is a similar background of Deacon Frost, but in this show, Deacon Frost was just a normal man scientist who had a son, and his son wasn't want to follow in his footsteps into some, I don't know what he was studying, is science related, but it was just him and his son. The wife passed away, some time ago. And one night when Deacon came home, the place was broken into. His son got attacked and by obviously a vampire. And of course, through his, grief, he, did some digging, go to the cops many times. And of course, if you're following any of Blade related content, you know that vampires are infiltrated, keep parts of society via their familiars in order to remain hidden through the public eye. And of course, obviously, a couple of cops are on those kind of payrolls, so they denounce him as a crazy person. And this drove him mad to the point where he started to experiment, seemingly to rid the world of vampirism, but instead he plans on improving on the vampirism to make superhuman vampires, and which eventually he tend to try to get Blade's blood in order to, because he's immune to a lot of their weaknesses except the thirst for blood. So he perfected it to the point where he is nearly as probably like the upper echelon of vampires, but he's still weak to the traditional means. But Blade, he meets up with this other vampire hunter named Makoto. Her and her father's infiltrating this club that is primarily filled with, it's kind of like the club scene in the first Blade film, which, by the way, check out my Blade movie reviews that's up on the channel. The first two is up on the channel right now. The second one's getting a whole bunch of hits. So I was like, you guys are amazing, but definitely check out the first one and my thoughts on that. But it's kind of like the club scene with the first Blade film, or technically like the club scene as well as in the second film too. But irregardless, it's most of them are filled with vampires, with humans there not realizing what kind of place it is. And one dude hitting up Makoto turns out to be a werewolf. They're acknowledging there's other creatures in the world besides vampires, which, if you've seen like the alternate ending of Blade Trinity, there's werewolves too. The werewolves exist. And so while Blade shows up to handle these vampires, telling like Koto and the dad to get out of here, I'll handle these people. They take out the stragglers, but Deacon Frost attacks the dad, bites him, and the transformation people go through via vampirism is super fast. Now, you could look up about like vampiric lore, but in the movies, I know what Blade says in the first movie, like, forget what you see in the movies, aside from his own movie, I guess, that crosses in holy water don't do squat. But I don't know, there's some level of truth to it. Vampires are essentially our abominations in the eyes of God and heaven, because they feed on blood to survive. They're leeches in a sense. So it makes sense that stuff like holy relics would be a weakness to them. But anyway, the guy you see people turn into vampires, and it's usually like, from the many vampire movies that I've seen over the years, and the books that I've read, and the comics that I've read, so on and so forth, usually, it's not even just vampires, but like werewolves. Usually it takes like a day before that virus circulates the system, and then the change starts to happen. Like with werewolves, the next full moon, that stuff will immediately kicks in. Or with vampires, it's like usually the next day or next night. But here it's like instantaneously. Like a lot of people's like want Blade to end their suffering because they know it's coming, the change is coming. And it's like, man, that is fast. And it's like, yeah, at least, I don't know, in my mind, you're like, dude, you got at least a day or two max before the change happens. I guess it's irrelevant because once that bite happens, is, more often than not, it's little you can do about it. There's no medicine for this. But in most cases, when it comes to vampires and like zombies, it's like, well, zombies, like you're just dead creatures. But with vampires, it's like you lose your humanity. It's like that you stop seeing like other people as people and more like food. It's like the way you probably look at, I don't know, chickens and it's like things that it's food that keep me alive. But there's all rare occasions where, like Nisa in Blade 2, where she seems a bit more, sympathetic, where she's not just, a bloodthirsty, just sadistic ghoul. But I don't know, it all depends. I don't know how like vampirism. It's like, this is my personal take, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of us, just like in recent months with the whole situation with aliens and seeing some UFOs in the sky and stuff like that, I definitely buy the fact that there are aliens out in the world, out in the universe, outside our own Milky Way galaxy. And I personally believe that there are supernatural creatures in the world, and I think vampires actually do fucking exist. I'm not 100% sure how, like, I'm not sure if like movies or plays or books exaggerate, at least to some extent, on, they're losing their humanity and they're just like attack people. But I think like, hey, there kind of would be an occasion where it all depends. It's like, do you give in to the monster side of you, or do you try to hold on to that bit of humanity and like, no, I don't want to attack a person, I want to raid a blood bank or attack an animal and feed off that blood so I can sustain myself. It'll still do the job to keep me alive without me giving in to the bloodlust. Unless you try to abstain yourself from consuming blood, which is not a good idea. It's just like anybody who's choose not to eat, and and it's like that craving will happen, and you'll either the body will start feeding off itself, and you start going through cravings, and it's just health wise, it's not good for you. Anyway. The dad changed very quickly, and you'll see this a few times through this arc. So the daughter Makoto is freaking out, beseeching to the dad, like, please, like pleading to the dad, like, don't do this. And then Blade shows up, kills the dad immediately, and it's kind of annoying, but I'm glad it only lasts a couple of episodes. But Makoto starts hating Blade for what she did, and for the next couple of episodes, she's trying to figure out like how to kill him for taking her father away, and realizing that this dude was inches away from slaughtering you. But I'm glad that didn't drag on throughout the bulk of the season. It's just like, no, 2 episodes and she come to understand Blade's background. But she's a cool character and like a sidekick to Blade throughout this entire season. Blade then come across Deacon Frost, who was hiding away at the club. Not sure what he was there for, maybe because he was still running experiments. There are weird vampiric creatures that Blade fights along the way that Deacon Frost creates. Like this sea tiger vampire guy that Blade fights in this underground cavern, that just like you'll see in like Blade Trinity, if you remember that movie where they farmed these brain dead people. Here in the show, they're not brain dead, but this, these trafficked women that is held in these containers, kind of like the healing chamber in Empire Strikes Back. They held up in there so their blood can be harvested. And this is cool too. Like Blade has these, because you'll see his background on how because you rarely see that in many Blade content. I think like that Spike TV show covered it a little bit from what I remember. It's been many years, but I do kind of recall there's some kind of, Batman Begins level of history of his training. But here you get to see that he is trained by the Swords Master, who at the same time was training Kikyo. If you remember Kikyo from Wolverine anime, that he has like a rivalry with. He was hired to take out Wolverine, but sees Wolverine as a worthy opponent. Here you see that Kikyo was trained by the same teacher as Blade. It's pretty dope. And also Steve Bloom, my idol, voiceover idol, voices two different characters. One, this kind of, Aussie, boat driver and associate of Abraham Van Helsing, which is like a replacement of Whistler, which I don't know why you just couldn't use Whistler, why you had to use some Van Helsing type of guy. I don't agree with that. He's fulfilled the same purpose. And there's a little dog named Razor, which helps. I'm not sure. It's just his bite strength, helps rip out the throats of vampires and kills them. I guess I buy that, sure. But anyway, and Steve Bloom also voices, Kikyo, which is very Orochimaru type of thing. So, the Swords Master teaches Blade these 3 unique moves, these 3 deadly sword techniques. One is like a illusion moon. Dang, I forgot what it was. The third one was a more lethal one. It's called Chaos Moon. One is illusion moon. The third one is Chaos Moon. I forgot what the second one was, but it gives like very anime-esque, sword style things like you typically see in like Bleach or whatever sword type of anime. And of course it always leaves like a unique power swing with like an energy strike sometimes. But the illusion moon gives you like an appearance that Blade's being like killed off, but it's an illusion, and it gives him like opening to strike and cut down his foe, which is very dope. So from the first movie, Deacon Frost is responsible for creating Blade because he bit his mother and while she was pregnant with him, and that's why Blade is a daywalker. And like I said before, in my Blade 2 and Blade 1 review, I think it should be freaking common knowledge how, at least by this point, how Blade became who he is. And it's like, why don't a few of these vampires bite a few pregnant women and then have them birth their babies, so that way they can have, you know, daywalkers in their nest to train and raise to be like elite fighters to combat Blade himself, so that way Blade cannot you know, Blade has like a more lethal threat on his hands that from either day or night that isn't like deterred by traditional means. In Spike TV, they kind of handled that theory where while Blade was young and before he met up with Whistler, he was rolling with a group of, you know, I don't know if I call them gang members, but just a group of guys that were just friends. And his hunger, you know, his cravings kind of got the best of him. He ended up biting these guys in his blood craze, and he ended up, Blade ended up siring these guys into being, you know, daywalkers themselves. Because so if Blade ended up biting a human person, they would turn into what he is. But Blade ends up killing them because they felt, unlike Blade, who had somebody like Whistler and other people to like nurture his human side, these guys, you know, not saying like they went full monstrous, but they lacked, you know, they got, you know, overconfident, and it was like, oh, I'm pretty much like a god amongst men, so I don't have to follow the traditional rules of society anymore because I'm better, kind of attitude. And Blade had to take them out because they became like very reckless. That's what it was distinctly remember, because one of the guys in that group, I forgot what his name, the actor's name was, but if you remember the black guy who was the Shocker in Spider-Man Homecoming, he was one of those guys in that group from that Spike TV Blade TV show. Yeah. So Blade and Abraham met up. Makoto followed them onto this boat on their way to this island where they think Deacon Frost is going to. And they go through a few islands, each one with some weird vampire creature. And you learn about Blade's backstory, and his first vampire kill he had to deal with was his own mother, who he thought was dead, but for like 10 years never heard of him, because Blade was raised by, because in the comics, because they really don't really harp on it, they kind of allude to it and let you use your cognitive skills to figure out that Blade's mom was a prostitute, and she lived in a whorehouse, and all the other females helped raised Blade. They even have like a cop friend of the brothel who helped keep Blade out of trouble and everything like that. There's one particular lady named Maria or Mary or something like that, was primarily the one looking after Blade or Eric in her apartment room. But Blade's powers really starting to manifest around this time, because I was curious, it's like, you know, because he's starting to get those cravings, and when you see blood, it's freaking him out. But I guess it's, you know, it's hitting that point, kind of like, you know, mutant powers are starting to manifest, you know, in their either preteens or teens. But I was like, you know, why is this not like, wasn't like a thing prior to this, but I guess, like I said, it's kind of like a puberty thing. It's starting to, it was gestating until this point. But strange things starting to happen around this time where don't know where the mom has been. She was presumed dead. I don't know why it wasn't an autopsy or a burial or anything like that. Because that was confusing. It's like, where was she? This, like they didn't have no body to bury when Deacon Frost bit her, and she was literally in a hospital, birthing this kid with her last breath, and she would have died on an operating table, as hinted. And there would probably be a burial. Not to say like, vampires wouldn't break out of the casket after being presumed dead, but I don't know, there probably would have been word out that, hey, there was this like, warning this lady looking after Blade, like, hey, the woman that y'all used to know, her gravesite has been like messed with, and the body is gone. And I kind of wish they kind of added that a bit, so that way it would be some kind of looming worry that this guardian is keeping from Blade. And it's like, Blade, I don't want you going out too late, okay? Can you, there's a curfew, can you get home at a certain time, and have like a look of worry and watching out the window and things like that to make sure, like, hey, something's going on, blah 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 blah. But one day Blade walking down the street, find, the cops are surrounding this corpse where there was an attack. So he ran by this alley, hearing his mom's voice and seeing like the cop that's looking after him and the girls at the brothel. He has vampire marks on his neck. He's dead. He went back to the brothel. It's up in flames. All the ladies that he know are all gone. Well, not gone, but they're all dead. And a lot of the customers that's there, they're dead. All because of this one vampire. And he sees his mother killing his guardian. And the knife that he had, that the guardian had, he kept. He used it to, stake his mom through the heart in those last moments before she turned to ash. She's, filled with regret and saying she's sorry, she loves him, before she disappears. Then sometime later he bumps into Abraham Van Helsing, and then started being taught how to deal with vampires and learn sword fighting skills with Swordmaster. Then he becomes who he becomes. But on the boat, Abraham has to tie Blade down, so that way once he's given his serum, which to Makoto is shocked, like, what the heck is going on? Gotta take the serum in order to satiate his hunger. So in lieu of because he can consume blood, but he refused to take human blood. So this serum gives the same satisfaction as he would have if he would have drank blood. But some people might ask, like, why doesn't this be used against like vampires? It only works for somebody like Blade because he's still got a human side. He's half vampire, so that way his human side kind of, I guess kind of like a base or something like that, where it's like allows it to nurse his the cell structure. I don't know the science of it, but it helps. Try to give it to somebody just like a straight vampire, it probably won't be as good as probably, I don't know, it just wouldn't do the job. At least from my recollection from other sources that from many years ago, from like what little I remember from my brain, yeah, it won't help. Um, anyway, the boat is attacked by these kind of harpy ladies, more vampire creatures Deacon Frost created, where they try to take out Blade, but thanks to Van Helsing, he steps in and he gets carried off, and they got to track him down, which leads to Blade taking out all these like harpy ladies. They look like harpy ladies from Yu-Gi-Oh! Or from Greek mythology. And they save Abraham, but he decides like, I'm old, but he ends up showing up tail end of the whole entire thing. But like, oh, I'm old, I gotta heal up, but have my, take my dog with you so he can look after you guys. So Blade, after Makoto realizes about Blade's backstory and who he is, and realizing that there was no other choice but to take out her father, so she forgives him, retroactively decides, I'll be your sidekick, and then they go on this little adventure to deal with Deacon Frost for good. Along the way, they meet up with all these different people, all dealing with their own creatures and suffering along the way. Like this native people, this woman who lost her brother in this, who was fighting this vampiric demon flying creature with, who tears her body in half, and like the ends has like, squiggly tentacle things. And she had two partners with her, and she wanted to avenge her brother and her people. Meet up with Blade, and they end up taking out these creatures, but the two guys that she was with get turned, and while Blade took out the big boss monster, this lady ends up taking out her former partners who were turned, but in this fight she's mortally wounded, and then she dies, showing showing that the life of a vampire hunter is not all fun and adventure. You will tend to lose people close to you, or even your own life. Same thing with another island that he go to, where this possible cure happens, where this meet up with this old man who, because Deacon Frost and his cronies are taking female villagers, or at least one of his underlings, kind of like a big walrus, vampire creature that transforms into a bunch of little rats. He, takes a bunch of women from these villages and bring them, to like do some kind of labor, but they are experimented on and turn to this little squiggly, long neck, grotesque, ropey things. But the old man, for a time, thought like, oh, I blessed these waters and they're not changing into vampires. Like, there's a cure. And Blaze, super skeptical, because it's like, there is no cure. And I don't know how I feel about this exactly, because I can go one or two ways. Whereas, like, I'm kind of glad that Blade is proven right, because more often than not, there is no cure to, like, somebody changes into a vampire, werewolf, or a zombie. It's like, once bitten, that is it. Your life has changed forever. But on the other hand, I kind of wish, there was like a possibility that this could be like a baseline where it can be synthesized, and with some further experimentation could possibly lead to, maybe not within its current state, but further examination could prove a possible cure in the long term. But Blade doesn't want to entertain that idea whatsoever. He's very rigid in his thinking. So this old man uses sacred water in order to stave off the vampirism in his wife and hopes to use it for other people. But it turns out it was like I said, it only was like a stall tactic. Don't know why, because this water is used to eventually just kind of like holy water. They destroy vampires. I'm not sure why it took so long. It should have just immediately destroyed this woman when she was just submerged in this thing. But the women in this village, at least some of them, change. Makoto leads them to this open lake where the old man blessed the water after he was bitten by his wife, despite his trying to reach the human part of her by showing her this necklace that she made for him. But all that meant nothing. She's just like a grotesque monster at this point. So with his last bit of humanity, he blessed the waters and succumbed to his own to the waters himself, not wanting to live his last moments as a creature. And Blade takes out this walrus looking creature. I kind of wish these little mini bosses that Blade deals with had more of an impact than they did. It's just like the animators had this fun drawing random things. I don't know why like a walrus creature transformed into just like a bunch of rats, even though he had like a rat tail. I guess it's like a combination of rat walrus because he has big long tusks. But eventually Blade runs in to Kikyo, who's technically been hired by Deacon Frost to deal with Blade. At the same time, Blade runs into this military sergeant who's held up in the forest because he was part of this crazy governmental experimentation, this black site thing where the government took a handful of soldiers to try to make essentially super soldiers, but using vampirism in order to have controlled monsters, in order to superhumans, in order to fight on for the U.S. military against enemies. But the whole thing has been disbanded, and like the unit who realized what they've done and what they turned into, one by one went out in the sunlight, killed themselves, and so there's only one sergeant left, but he's still maintaining his humanity, only robbing like blood banks in order to satiate his hunger. But him and Blade fight off these vampire ninjas working with Kikyo, and then Kikyo takes out the sergeant, and he hands Blade a bunch of these dog tags of his other brothers in arms, and asks for Blade to, when he goes back to the States, find a nice place to bury him. This is nice. I kind of wish we get to see that. But then Kikyo and Blade's old teacher, sword master, shows up. Turns out he's a vampire because after he realized he had, was diagnosed with cancer, he felt horrible because he, wanted, as a man of the sword, he wanted to die with honors in like a fight. And it was more honorable than dying on his deathbed because of this disease. So after his students left, he got this letter seemingly from Blade, and it turns out to be a trap set by Deacon Frost, where the swordsmaster wanted to well, this is my chance. I'll go down fighting these undead creatures. But Deacon Frost ended up turning him. And I guess you can say that, he used this opportunity to, like, well, how do I put this? You can say in one way where he was still himself, but used this opportunity to, like, force his students' hands into taking him out so he can die with honor. And you see that he used the same techniques that he taught Blade, the deadly sword techniques, against Blade, because many times Blade been taking out all these little mini bosses with his deadly sword techniques, and just to see it being used on him was kind of hilarious. And Kikyo realizing, because like, you got hired by vampires, what do you think was going to freaking happen? It's kind of idiotic. But then he's like, it's like, I can't believe like what's been going on. It's like, I'm gonna take out these undead bastards. So he wanted to team up with Blade or help Blade, but Blade takes out his master via the deadly sword technique number 3, and he thanked his students. He learned a lot from them. All nice little moments before he disappeared. Deacon Frost ends up showing up, ambushes Blade, knocks him out right when Makoto, who was recovering from a serious wound left by these vampire ninjas, and so she started chasing after Blade, who, thanks to Kikyo, don't know why he bothered to tell Kikyo about his base of operations, but he did. So Kikyo knows that Deacon Frost's base of operations is in Vietnam. So that's where Makoto and Razor go chasing after them. So Blade hears Frost's backstory while harvesting the blood and trying to get his emotions pumping, like the adrenaline going, to get the blood coming faster. When Makoto shows up, try to help Blade escape, she's attacked, and this infuriates Blade. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm skipping on the best part. Blade teams up with Wolverine at one point, and this was the same voice actor in the Wolverine solo anime in his arc. Because as I stated in my review for the Wolverine arc in the Marvel anime, each, like, there's only 4 parts. I kind of wish the same studio make another set of 4 with different Marvel characters coming to Japan to deal with a particular adversary. Each one should like alternate between cameos, because kind of like Wolverine showed up in the bulk of these, except for the one that he's starring in, and have Cyclops shows up as a cameo. And I'm like, man, well, this is not too bad, because Blade and Wolverine teamed up before. But it's like, have Iron Man show up or something to help out. That'd been dope, because he started it this series, and it is right that not necessarily end it, but show up at the tail end as a nice little clean roundabout. But Wolverine shows up because Blade and Makoto go to Magiport, where Wolverine shows up, where Deacon Frost is utilizing this this criminal boss, this crime boss. Is not like a kingpin type of guy, but the guy who wants to be like a kingpin type of guy is hired to make, because the people that the old man was with the blessed waters, the women there were mining silver, and that silver was taken to Magipur so this crime boss can manufacture silver bullets for his men to use, because Deacon Frost, because of what happened to his son, he using it as an excuse because he couldn't find no specific vampire who caused it, but he's raising war against these vampire high council members in order to like get even. And that's why he's making these super vampires via science and using the blood for the Daywalker in order to perfect his experiments. All the while, the High Council is sending this little representative, this fop, dressed in like old timey Victorian, only gonna say Victorian, but just very like, this garb, like very like old English garb, and Blade and Wolverine ends up taking this guy out with the help of this crime boss after the munitions place is blown up because of this British guy. And Wolverine, who's in Magiport because he's going after AIM, and Wolverine, I kind of this episode ends with Wolverine giving Blade some information about Existence, which is like organization ran by Deacon Frost, where Blade's investigation leads him next. Because like this vampire stuff ain't really my thing, but I got some information that might help you lead to Existence and dealing with Frost. And so Blade and Wolverine shake hands, go their separate ways. It's dope. It's dope to see these two guys like a team up thing. There's like a mutant, a human, and a half vampire dealing with one whole vampire and taking them out. Hilarious. But the gangster ends up dying from his wounds after he was stabbed in the back by this vampire. So anyway, Makoto gets bitten by Frost, which sends Blade in a rage, but Van Helsing shows up with a giant Gatling gun, mowing down a bunch of fools, setting off bombs, destroying the facility so sunlight can get in, and Frost making his escape, only grabbing 2 vials of Blade's blood. He's like dodging all this like rapid gunfire, and then he sees that there's sunlight out, and the helicopter is like, like almost like 7-10 feet away from the entrance. It's like not ideal. I won't say it's not ideal. It kind of makes sense safety wise that not too close to the entrance, but it's like, given how hilarious this moment is where you're looking out and it's like, oh fuck, it's broad daylight out, and so he has to hoof it towards the helicopter. It has tinted windows so that way the sunlight won't get in. So he's like smoking while he's running at top speed towards this helicopter to run off to his main facility, this big giant dome area where his experiments are. So Makoto's alive enough to say her goodbyes to Blade, Abraham, and Razor. Once again, the life of a vampire hunter, it doesn't end pleasantly. There's no retirement fund or like a gold watch you get at the end of this. It's like usually it doesn't end on a good note. So, not wanting to succumb to her wounds, she beseeches to Blade to like end it. So Blade does it, kind of like like Wolverine did for Jean Grey in X3. So Blade, Abraham, and Razor go off to Frost's base of operations, because he just has multiples. Doesn't even see we don't even see how he like manages to acquire this amount of wealth and reach. Obviously probably taking like years, but that would have been more interesting as like a separate episode, just to see like, okay, how does he like manage to get this amount of reach, especially somebody like Japan, because there's an episode where Blade teams up with this local cop to get those girls out of this cave, and it turns out there's a lot of familiars in high positions, including his own partner, are familiars working with Frost in order to hide his secret experimentations and dirty goings-ons. And when this partner, who seems like a very sweet, newbie cop guy, not so subtly hint very sinisterly, like, it's a lovely dollar, probably should like, keep your nose clean, or because something might happen. And the cop is like, not liking the whole subtle threat, punches this dude in front of everybody. It's like, I ain't listening to you. I don't give a crap like that. It's like, I'll take all you bastards on. It was, the whole thing was like very badass, very cool moment. You would think it would be like the young cop on the other end of things, and the old cop is actually dirty, but no. He's kind of like the Commissioner Gordon type of guy. So yeah, I will love that, like a separate episode where you see like how Deacon Frost get this kind of reach to be like a serious threat towards this vampire council. But when Blade gets there, there's already like a fight going on where the High Council sent all these medieval armored clad vampires to attack, Deacon Frost's operations and fighting all his vampires and creatures. Blade shows up along with Kikyo, Abraham, and Razor, all taking out all these grunts and creatures, while Blade runs up and meets up with Frost, and Frost sends out two, using his the blood used for he got from Blade to make these two, they almost look like liquors from Resident Evil, except they can, the height of a man and walk on two legs if they want to. They kind of look like that, and they can survive in daylight. So Blade is having a tough time, but he does manage to take them out. And then Frost, using the experiment to beef him up, so now he's like, it's like a super shredder, but like a vampire like super shredder. And he starts beating the hell out of Blade. Then Blade, using like these metal, I don't know, that titanium, like spiked, titanium knuckle, kind of like brass knuckles, but they titanium with spikes on the end. And with the with thoughts of Makoto, with like that like battle of will, takes out Frost, knocks him out of the building with like a sword through his, or no, a knife through his chest. His knife was, he got from his mom, or surrogate mom, and plunges in his chest. And it's like, sure, you can survive with sunlight, but you're supposed to be some kind of super vampire, so it's like you can survive in daylight, but you still easily succumb to a knife through the heart. I don't know. You'd think like a super vampire would, have some kind of boosted defense. Maybe not a complete invulnerability, but boosted defenses against their typical weakness. Like in Blade 2, like those Reaper vampires have like a hard casing of bone around their heart to prevent, any state to get through it. And I kind of figure like that kind of thing should be the case here, along with his defense with against the sunlight. But anyway, he manages to stake Frost, completely destroying him. Then the boat captain and a bunch of his friends help Abraham round up any surviving humans that were being caged, for further experiments. All get help while Blade, Abraham, and Razor walk off in the sunset or the sunrise, because there's still more vampires need to be taken care of. And that's the end of Marvel anime Blade. It was a good show. It's like, how I'll rank them. I think Iron Man will be number one in my opinion. Blade will probably be number two. Wolverine will be third because it's pretty much based off of his first ever miniseries comic back in the 80s. So you can easily read that if you want to. It's almost beat for beat, almost. They make tweaks here and there. But then the last one would probably be X-Men. It wasn't terrible, but if I had the least favorite, it would be the least favorite. Because it isn't like the complete X-Men. Because you see like, Nightcrawler and Rogue and Colossus, in like a cameo appearance dealing with other stuff in the States, while the other roster of X-Men are dealing with the main issue. Yeah, it's been a fun ride. Like I said, I wish the studio bring whoever worked on these 4 different stories come back and do other Marvel characters like Spider-Man, like going to Japan, Daredevil going to Japan. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see Captain America, or maybe just the Avengers, because he did like a whole team with the X-Men. How about the Avengers go to Japan and deal with like a threat? That each one will kind of be fun. Anyway, leave a comment below if you're watching this on YouTube. What Marvel character you would kind of wish to have like a Marvel anime type story to deal with? Like, they'll be interesting of them going to Japan and dealing with a threat. Like, and what threat or enemy do you think will be right for the story? Like, I don't know, because they already did like Zodiac, which is like a very underused villain or rogue, because they're typically dealing with like the Avengers, the Zodiac, because they're a terrorist group. But having Iron Man deal with him was fun. But having like the Avengers dealing with, I don't know, well, I'll say like, how about like, Nick Fury and Shield dealing with going to Japan and dealing with Hydra. But then like the Avengers dealing with, I don't know, like Ultron, I guess. I'm trying to think of like an Avengers level threat. Because Japan is very technologically ahead of most other countries, and dealing with someone like Ultron would be very interesting. And like Peter Parker dealing with maybe like Doc Ock or the Sinister Six. And of course, like Daredevil dealing with like the Hand in Japan will be obvious. Anyway, I will see you guys in a few minutes as I cover the final Blade film, Blade Trinity, which I've been dreading, but I figured I've done all this Blade stuff, I might as well wrap it up with the final Blade film and get that out the way, because eventually I will have to do that. Anyway, leave a comment below, share it with your friends. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the entire Marvel anime series. And I'll see y'all soon. Peace.